everyone. I'm your host, Brittany Jones-Cooper, and welcome back to Build. From playwright Jeremy O'Hara's Slave Play follows 3 interracial couples exploring how our history affects race, power dynamics, and love. After a successful run at the New York Theater Workshop, Slave Play is now on Broadway. And today, I'm sitting down with the cast to discuss all of the emotional twists and turns. Please help me welcome Joaquina Kalukango, Ato Blankson-Wood, James Cusati-Moyer, Sullivan Jones, Andy McNamara, Chalia La Tour, and Irene Sofia Lucio. And the hard part is over for me, which is getting all the names right in the right order, so we're done. I'm so excited to be sitting here with you guys. How's everyone doing today? Good?
Good. Great.
Yes. I'm just excited to try to get through this interview without giving away any spoilers. So we're gonna try really hard for you guys, because for me it is, I've seen it twice now. I saw it off Broadway and I've seen it now on Broadway, and the twists and turns are what make it such an amazing ride. And I think the feelings you have 2 days after, 4 days after, 3 weeks after are what make this show really special. So I know, with the exception of you, you guys were all a part of the original. So what does it mean for it to be now on Broadway? Atu, I'll let you take it.
I mean, it's really exciting because without giving much away, the content of this play is, I think, unusual for a Broadway stage, actually. And so it's really exciting that it resonated with audiences so much downtown that our producers, people behind it, felt that it needed to resonate with more audiences. And so I think it's just really exciting that we're here now. Yeah. You know?
For anybody else, has it changed, anything for you now being on Broadway? Does it make it more special? Does it make your message even more important? Or is it just still the work you do?
Well, I think it was important that when we transferred all the way uptown that we didn't change anything about the show. We didn't want to censor anything. We didn't want to shift anything for a Broadway audience, but we wanted to keep the integrity of that downtown production for a Broadway audience. It does affect it in a way of there are now 800 people watching, which affects the listening way more. If there's laughter, if people are gasping, there's a different energy to navigate and negotiate every night. But ultimately, it means something that more people get to watch the story, which is very important.
Yeah, and now for me, seeing it in both places, I love that it wasn't changed and that it almost seemed more raw in some places. So were there tweaks to kind of even amp up some of it a little bit? Because I feel like even some of the dialogue, I just was like, oh, I don't remember it being that kind of specific or pointed as it was off Broadway.
I think something that's really beautiful about us, like moving from downtown uptown, is like we get the chance to, for some of us, to like delve into this text again, and people to, I mean, you said that you saw it downtown as well, like for people to see these arguments one more time. So I think there is something that we've lived, a lot of us have lived in these characters for a year now, and been able to like have our own experiences, been a part of like larger talks within our communities. So it is like, let's everything just like focus a little more, drop down a little more. And because we have support from so many folks coming back from downtown, like, I know for me, like, it's really an honor to be like, oh, well, what can I do one more time to investigate? It's really lovely.
It's like if you're barbecuing, let's say, a brisket, and, you just put in the smoker for a little longer, and it comes out with that real rich texture. That smoky flavor.
We had good barbecue.
So it's a little smokier, it's a little richer. And it's not everyone's flavor, but there's a lot of flavor.
Yeah.
How was that?
That's great.
Good. And
Like a fine wine.
Ooh, the deep, very white delivery was really on point. I really appreciate that, Sullivan.
You got it.
Joaquina, for you, what was your reaction the first time you saw this script and just this kind of story that Jeremy wanted to tell?
Shock. I was silent for a while, and even my first experiences of hearing it in the first table reading, and then also seeing the scenes for the first time with the cast, I was shook. I don't think I was like, this is really, they said we're going to Broadway with this, like that's really happening. I mean, they're all incredible human beings, and the commitment and the truthness and the rawness that they bring to these characters is just really beautiful. And I don't think I've ever seen, honestly, a play that was so raw and real and honest and so bearing of souls in the language, and to get to witness that every night with these people is mind-blowing. It's amazing.
It's really, really special. And with your character, you're the first thing we see and the last thing we see. So can you talk about the importance of having a Black woman in this role and your character's role specifically?
Ooh. The importance. What attracted me to this role was one that she speaks for 10 pages. I don't think I've ever seen that on a stage where it just wasn't honestly like a one-woman show, honestly, but like in a play that you were forced to listen to this Black woman and her complex thoughts. And regardless of where they went and how you feel about it, you were forced to listen. And that was exciting for me. And I loved even the first image of her, even twerking. There's so much taboo around that word and where it comes from. And as somebody who is African and as somebody who was born and raised in Atlanta, fully with the context of what it means to own your body and move and be moved by the spirit in that way that music only does, is kind of exciting to put on a Broadway stage, honestly, in a real way, and it's affirming. And I'm so, I feel a lot of the love of especially Black young girls who are in college right now, in theater schools, coming and saying, oh my God, thank you, we have material to work from now in a real way. A lot of that was missing for me in college when I went to school, of like, where are these voices that are speaking to me? And we have incredible playwrights now. I think we're living in a really great time to where more narratives are coming out. And Jeremy so beautifully gives this Black woman a lot of material to work from, and it's complex and honestly great material to work from as an artist.
Brutally honest, the things that she says, which is hard because she's in so much of this process of recognizing things about herself that maybe she hadn't recognized before. And I think for a lot of women in the audience, a lot of Black women in the audience, that's relatable as you like continue to evolve and change. But what is it for you to go to that place every night? Because some of her, reactions are like guttural,
Right. It's hard, honestly, to play somebody who is so easily triggered every night. And to be quite honest, a lot of that comes from the audience's reaction to, I can get easily triggered by responses, and it'll change. It'll change directly every night depending on who's there and what they feed. It's taxing, but it's also great. Robert O'Hara said something so beautifully when we were in rehearsal of just like, our ancestors went through a really tough time, a really long, incredible, hard time. And so to only have to embody whatever hard emotions or things that we're feeling for 2 hours is nothing compared to what our people have went through. And so with that, I take that every time I go on the stage of just like, there's an honor and a reckoning and just a grace and a love that I have for my people. So to go out there and do that every night, I know it's beyond me. So I don't let that get in the way.
That's impressive. It is incredibly powerful what you do every night. And for you, Atu, same thing. Your character is somebody who has to really confront why whiteness is validating to him. So for you going to that place and really kind of processing what that means for your character, like what has that been like for you?
It's been difficult, for sure. I mean, we were even talking about it backstage, like about how to step out of the play, self-care. Like how do you come down from that? The difficulty with this play is we're discussing things that are alive in the world today. So it's like you walk out into the street, you get on your subway car, and you're watching microaggressions. So it is, yeah. I don't know that I have an answer, honestly. Like I feel like I'm still figuring that part out. Like it is difficult for sure. But again, like Joaquina said, like Jeremy has done something that is so delicious for an actor. So like there is an amount that I'm like I feel just very honored and excited that I get to play this role. I will continue to figure out the self-care and like how to like really step out of it, but the pros far outweigh the cons in that way,
And it must be nice because I read that you and James have known each other for years, and your two characters, Dustin and Gary, are in a relationship that has a lot of obstacles. So does that help that you guys have already had this foundation of friendship that you can go to these places and you feel safe in it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Every night that we go out on stage, there is such a trust involved that, I mean, we went to Yale School of Drama together, and we were scene partners, and we were, you know, it was us, and we really found a trust in each other's physical bodies in terms of speaking our truths to each other, and you know, that trust that we have every night, and in dealing with this difficult material, you know, like Atu said, you know, you walk out on the street every night and you deal with these and you observe these microaggressions. But there's also there's a reason why all of us are playing these individual roles, that we fit these roles, and that the veil between us and these roles are, it's thin. So it's a constant examination every day about what is my role in this role, and what does this say about me? What does this say about my relation to my scene partner, but also my character in this play? And so every day is a learning lesson, but to have not only my scene partner, who I trust so much, but the entire ensemble, that if anybody ever misses a beat or is having a bad day, or we will catch each other. And that is so present. And I don't think I've ever felt that so fully in an ensemble. And that trust involved, from there, creative expression is limitless. From that point on, when that dialogue is present and the ability to share our truths and bare our hearts to each other in all of its messiness, that is where brilliance lies, because then we can be our true selves with each other.
And also with your character specifically, the issues of privilege are kind of his main theme, or the thing that he's sort of struggling with, but it's also done with a lot of humor. At least in the beginning, your character really sort of, it's like you kind of feel a relief laughing, even though he's processing stuff. It's still like, I think that's how Jeremy's sort of written it, where you can still laugh at this journey that your character's on.
Yeah, well, he's a bit ridiculous. He's a bit, I mean, without giving anything, well, spoiler alert, so if you don't want to know, but you know, he's a performer. And so there's a lot of narcissism involved into how he is perceived with those around him within this room, within the rest of the world, and you know, his inability to recognize his own privilege and how he moves through the world, and how he needs to show up for his black partner. He's unable to see through that until the end, when. Never mind, I'm not going to say anything.
Until the end, which you have to see. Running through January 19th. Sullivan, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
Oh, you lost that Barry White?
You play Philip. You play
Yes.
Philip, and Philip is another one who we're able to sort of access his journey through his identity, through some humor, which is a nice relief. But what has it been like to play a biracial character who on stage is sort of processing his identity personally and how the world perceives him? Because I have a lot of people who are biracial in my life, and it is a constant journey that people are on, and you very rarely see that journey explored in art.
Right. Yeah. What's great? I'm mixed. My mother is white. My dad's black. Shout out to all the mixed people out there. It's tough growing up. You know, it was a lot of discovery and questions and all that kind of stuff. What's great about it is that he gets to find out on stage. A lot of the things that I've dealt with psychologically, emotionally, have been in the privacy of my own thoughts or with friends and families, or my family. But Philip gets to have a moment on stage where he sort of has an epiphany. And when you're working alongside the incredibly talented Annie McNamara, it makes all the moments that much easier and more buoyant, because Annie is such a brilliant actress.
And your guys' chemistry, Annie, I mean, it is really fun to watch you guys, and also disturbing at some moments, which is a credit to your performance. What is it like to play a woman like Alana, who just has all these sort of struggles with power? And yeah, I would say that, without giving anything away, I feel like her biggest thing is like releasing power or giving into power sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, use this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or control.
Control. Yeah. Oh, geez. I don't know what if she thinks about. I think about that, but I don't know if she thinks about that. I mean, for the most part, I do definitively use an idea that Irene gave me at the workshop we did at the O'Neill in Connecticut, like over a year ago. The idea of working on these characters from finding the blind spot in the character and going full throttle with love into that blind spot. So that lets me then be free to make all of these, let her make all of these sort of mistakes, I guess, from a place of earnestness versus like a place of stupidity. Just like she doesn't get it. and so, I mean, and also she sort of changes. Sometimes she's a little more angry, sometimes she's a little more weepy.
But I do think we have at least recently talked a lot more about like the white liberal woman and her sort of, so I do think your character is really important in sort of exploring what that looks like in practice and how that interacts with like her Black partner.
Yeah, I mean, I think she would think that she really gets it. But when it comes down to it, I mean, is that swear alert? Not really, because from the minute I get out there, you'll see I don't get it. It's a sort of the humor of humiliation is what I'm working with, and just like an incredible amount of nuance, really, and subtlety. I'm just kidding. I'm fully kidding. I'm joking. I love Alana very much. She makes a lot of mistakes, but she loves Philip, and she makes she really screws. Thing. Yeah,
she's she's important in the conversation, right?
She's
she's
the white lady, and I'm a lot of different white ladies. There are a lot of different white ladies. Like, oh, I'm just like Alana. I'm like, oh, good. I don't know.
People say that.
So, well, yeah, sometimes. And it's just like, oh, okay. But yeah, I'm sure I've done a lot of these things, but I've also not done a lot of these things. There are a lot of ways in which I'm not like Alana. I can't remember the last time I've had a boyfriend. So this ain't my life.
Girl, same.
Same.
I
mean, what? They go to sex therapy? What's sex? So, but but a lot of this sort of like my way of moving through the world socially and intellectually and having blind spots there, I'm sure this is not coming from nothing, what I do. So that's it.
And Chalia, I have to say, when it comes down to the script, I feel like you have some of the heftier, like you do a lot of explaining some of the more complex things. So what is the process for you of memorizing that and then like processing all of the things that you're saying every night? Because it's a lot.
Well, yeah, I think, Irene and I, we've been like with this script since Jeremy was first workshopping it in his first year at Yale. So we had like that first dive into like, what is, cause, to not give anything away, there are two women who think they have an answer and they have gone through their trial. Like it's, you see folks who, in the show, who are first figuring out like, hey, I have no idea what's going on. I have all this trauma. Let me show up and try and figure out. And then you have two characters who feel like we've done the work, we've done the thing, and now I'm here to save you. And just how with, sex, race, gender, all intersecting, when you're that person from your own specific identity, and then you say, I got the answer for everybody, what kind of really unhelpful self-righteousness that is to impose that on other people. So it's been really lovely to see this dense language of someone who's trying to figure out like, well, what is at the crux of all our humanity so we can get at this? You can't do it by yourself. And it's really interesting depending on whatever show we're doing to like delve into that like deep, thick language every time and see someone who is in process of figuring it out, but also so unable to say that they're wrong yet because, which I feel like so many folks who are trying their best to do good in the world get to that place and just don't have too much pride to say, actually here I don't know. So you just keep spinning and you keep making new ways to say I'm right and to say I'm right and to say I'm right. So you don't have to say, actually I'm hurt and I don't know. So I feel like each night that's been the thing that has fueled what seems to be, if you were to just see it on the page sometimes, like a thing that is very scientific and like technical, actually have such a deep level of emotional life for the person who wants these very deep, guttural pains to be able to just live in a cerebral place where they can't. So that's been the way I've tried to filter
And
through
you're
that.
nodding your head a lot. Your character is in a similar position as hers, where she is the one who's supposed to have the answers, but in several moments, especially when you're interacting together, it's like you are also clueless. So what is it for you to dig into that dialogue and kind of process it in the moment?
Yeah, similarly to Chalia, I had to find what this character's passion is for this kind of language, and I agree that sometimes academic language can be a great escape because you can live here and ignore a lot of what's happening, and it also feels like you can get easy answers sometimes, or at least a straightforward answer to human problems, which are never straightforward. So yeah, I feel very similarly to Chalia, but again, this play is a lot about colorism and race. So my character is everybody's dealing with the information they have based on the body that they live in, right? So my character represents a person that is in the white spectrum, but can claim a brown identity and the privilege in that, so that that character can use language to code shift as she sees fit.
That's one of my favorite parts of the play, actually.
Yeah, because she's so brilliant.
I was like waiting for it the second time. I was like, say it. It's really great. It's really great. But what is that like with the audience? Because we're being extremely vague, I know, during this interview, because we don't want to spoil it, because so much of it is this ride. But the audience is predominantly white, a little bit older now that you're uptown. So what is it like? What kind of reactions are you getting from people when you play certain scenes? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. I feel like I'm able to like get a sense of the demographic of the audience based on what they laugh at, what they like groan at, like who kind of like getting a sense of whose side are they on tonight. And when you notice that, you're like, oh, I kind of have a sense of who's out there tonight.
In the first scene, you can tell
Oh,
who they're
100%.
with.
And like Joaquina said, like that definitely affects your reaction in the moment, one's reaction in the moment, right? It's like, oh, but like, I need you to be on my side. Yesterday, y'all were on my side. You know what I mean? So it really is the audience is our like final castmate, you know, which is amazing. Yeah.
What about you guys? Yeah, go for it.
I have to say, one reaction I love that incites me is sometimes when there's like an outrage sound in the audience of like, how are they allowed to do that? That incites me to lean further into the choice because, especially when it comes to my character's identity, I'm not given permission and I'm not asking for permission to do this because I know what that is. I know what that identity is. And I find that interesting when audience members go, they shouldn't are not allowed to do that. I find that fun.
Well, and
Go ahead.
I would and I think certain nights when it's the coolest to me is when you like, because you can hear all the different reactions from the audience, and after a while, as you get into the play, you almost start like hearing the audience teaching each other across, because you'll hear a certain section, and maybe a certain section of the audience is one demographic, and they've been laughing at one part of the play, and the rest of the audience has been dead silent. And then a next scene happens, and you hear someone over in the upper left, and they're laughing at something while they're silent, and they don't know what just happened. And then as the play goes on, you see the laughter and the oohs and ahs all of a sudden start to become the same thing because they've started to learn, which is like the best thing about being in a theater and why it's so important to get diverse, specifically more Black, more brown, more young audiences into the theaters, because they are teaching the person next to them the thing that they would never be able to see because of where they're coming from. So it's like when you start to, like, I feel like that's when it feels the most successful, is that like, oh, along the way we've somehow created a space where the bold and the brash is like leaned in and people still stay with us. And if they stay long enough, they will start to figure out things that they would never have the door open to go see. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's also really telling. I mean, there's no secret about what the themes of this play are, and then, as it's advertised, and a lot of it deals with a lot of sexual politics, and it's so listening to the audience reactions and feeling that energy every night about what they are responding to or what they're surprised by or shocked by. You know, it's very telling that we you know, I'm sure people internationally are coming to see this play, but we, specifically as American audiences, how we're so used to viewing such violence on television, and so used to letting, we're so numb to what violence means, about people being hurt on screen or on stage. But when it comes to sex and how much is censored, and to challenge people's challenge people's comfort level about what they can see on stage, and how we, in our own individual journeys as our own individual characters, how we are claiming that sexual power, or getting it taken away from us, or but just to embrace that as we as humans are sexual beings, and to have that active conversation through the lens and through the practice of drama on stage. And shout out to Claire Warden, our intimacy director, who is she is kind of our guiding light about how do we communicate this story that is about sex, about many other things, but is also about sex, and that we do it respectfully to our own bodies as performers, but also for everyone else that is watching, because all of us obviously are sexual beings, and the conversation that I think is scared to be had.
You know the Janelle Monáe, she says like everything is sex except for sex, which is power. It's the first thing I thought when I saw this, and we can watch things on Game of Thrones and it's fantasy, but when we're experiencing it like we do in this play, when it's focused on race, which is something people don't want to talk about, that's when they get uncomfortable. So wait, take me through the intimacy coordinator, Sullivan, if you want to take this one. Just what was it like working with her, and how did that help you feel more confident on stage?
Yeah, well, it was definitely Claire Warden, who is the intimacy coordinator, and Robert O'Hara, our director, and Jeremy, I think, really established a room with a lot of tenderness and care and attention to sort of what we needed to tell the story that we needed, what we needed as actors to tell the story, what we needed to tell the story we had to tell as our characters. And it's demanding. It's incredibly demanding and revealing, and there's a lot of stuff you probably would never see in the theater, particularly on Broadway. But Claire came to us and said, okay, what do you need to do in order to do this? How can I assist you? Here's what I see. Here's the storytelling that I think is gonna enhance this moment and make it legible and clear and really pop. And let's work on this together. Yeah. Anybody else?
My favorite Claire nugget that we got was "no" is a full sentence. Which allowed us autonomy in making this intimacy happen. Like, if there was something we were actually not comfortable with, we could say no. And that was important.
Also, to Shalia's point, you really see earlier about the audience learning. When you are up there being bold and opening yourself up in ways that aren't typically seen, you feel the audience begin to sort of go, oh, okay, so that's where we're at. That kind of party. And so there's a reciprocity between what you're giving and how they're receiving it and what they're giving you. And sometimes there's nights where they are very kind of shielded. But it's empowering to sense that the audience is with you and sort of going like, cool, let's keep going.
Something I appreciate about the humor of the play is that it takes no prisoners, so everyone is fair game for a laugh. And I think that can be important too, that we're not necessarily offering answers, we're offering a lot of questions that need to be investigated, but we are all a subject of comedy as well, so that we can also laugh and get disarmed about all of these really difficult themes. And that sort of does create a community within the audience to provide almost a safe space to laugh at these really difficult things.
That's where I think the mirror helps too. Won't say where it is or what I'm talking about. But I think too, when you can see other people being engaged in a certain way, it gives you the freedom to laugh or be more, interactive as well. I could talk to you guys for another half hour, but we do have some questions. So who has the first one? Right here. Yeah, go for it.
I know we touched on it a little bit during the panel, but if I could just dive a little deeper. I know you guys have talked a lot about your training, and, the Yale School of Drama, of course, is amazing. And I think that acting school does a really good job of teaching you how to get into character, but they do not ever really talk about how to get out of character and how to still do that healthfully and effectively. And in roles like these that demand so much of you. I was really hoping that you could speak a bit more just on even like what you do when you get home. Do you take a bath? Like, how do you really become a person again?
Joaquina, can I throw that to you first? Yeah.
Lord, it's been a journey. I think I'm just now starting to find a routine. Before, I was out here just wild and crazy and losing all types of sleep and aimlessly wandering through the world. But to answer your question, I talked to Cynthia Erivo and Adrienne Warren about, because they've all had demanding roles and what that meant, and about self-care, because I've never done it in my life, period, as a person, to honestly take care of myself and what that means. And they opted me opinions about meditation. So I got a meditation app called Calm that literally gives you different, it literally has different sections of what you need. I meditate before the show, I meditate after. I also do a cool down and a warm up before the show and a cool down afterwards to just release those emotions of humming and letting go. I have stress-free tea that I have ready to go when I walk out, because I walk home to release a lot of that stuff, because the trains kind of make me crazy, so I have to walk sometimes to just get out into this space. What else? We have our producers are great. They give us massages on 2 show days, which is heavenly. I feel like, which every producer needs to do for their cast. I think that should be the precedent. And then therapy. I'm therapy. Yep. That's all. That's part of my self-care.
That's why I threw it to you, because your character does deal with some mental health issues, and I just feel like specifically having to go to that place every day.
Yeah, my body
would
hurts.
Probably bring up some stuff.
Yeah, my body hurts. I'm taking yoga now, and I hated yoga before. I mean, there are things that I'm doing that I literally was like so against, but it helps. Yoga, meditation, all of these things you hear, eating grapefruit, eating salads, drinking water, all of those things affect you in a real way where you're like, yeah, I actually have to take care of my body in order to do this every night.
Does anybody else have something they do specifically to sort of come down after the show? Or
Claire Warden taught us, even though I won't say about that. Blah, blah. Claire Warden taught us to tap in when we're doing the show and tap out when we're done. And all the partners do it, and then we do it as a company. And while that doesn't take care of your own personal body, and that's like sort of the things you have to do on your own, it does help with the relationships of the cast, to know that that was that, and now we're humans that share this theater together and are telling this story together, and that's been very helpful.
Yeah. Another student I've talked to is like just remembering that, like, even though you're an actor and it's like, oh yeah, I got like all these things that I can check off. I did this, this, and this today. Like, you are, you know, an emotional being. Like, you have a physical body that's gone through something, and then you have energetically, spiritually, which whatever you want to call that, going on as well, and just making sure that all those things are checked off, and it's whatever is needed. If it's your body, bath, massage, whatever. If it's like cerebral, like, is it meditation or therapy or something, and then whatever is that energy thing, like tapping with that, if that's going to be a prayer, a tarot, a crystal, something, or just looking at something beautiful for a little while, like, check all the things since you're working with your whole person. Yeah.
who has our next one?
First of all, wonderful performances, all of you. This is a question for James. I was very interested in your line, and I will paraphrase. I am not as white as I look. So if you have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, well, I had the tremendous honor and opportunity, which I am forever indebted to my friend Jeremy O'Harris for writing this role for me in mind, and having, but writing it also for his friends, in which perhaps struggle with identity and struggle with maybe that come from mixed backgrounds, people that perhaps deny the privilege that they have within any room that they walk into. But in regards to that specific line, you know, for me personally, I am half Arab and half Italian. And within the world of, as we were talking about colorism before and ethnicity, some people view Arabs as a people of color, but Middle Eastern is checked on Caucasian on the box of a census. So what my character is wrestling with is that he is not just the blanket term of white, and he can't recognize and he can't understand that this spoiler alert, that this day is for his black partner, and that his struggle, or anything that he has struggled with in terms of figuring out his identity, this is not the day for that. But he can't get over that. He can't figure that out. He refuses to be erased on this day. And perhaps Dustin will have a play to figure that out. But that's not this one. That's not this one, and that's not. And in regards to when he says that line, he's doing a complete disrespect to his black partner in terms of how any Black American in this country today, they have it really hard to this day, and to have that responsibility as an actor and as a performer, as a friend, we know the racial injustices that are happening still today in this country, that are from this systemic racism from the beginning of this country, but also around the world. And when he says this term, "I'm not white," he's looking for attention and a place and a day that's not his. But also for this character, that is my background and me, but that could be anyone walking into the spectrum, as Irene was talking about before, about if you are brown identifying, but if you are on the spectrum of white, and you can walk into a room and you can pass, and you can have that privilege of passing in society that perhaps favors your skin over someone else's. And that's what he can't recognize.
No, it was very interesting. I am not as white. I thought that was...
That's not the line. But
Is that not the line?
No, it's okay. No, it's just, I'm not white.
I'm not white.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And nice violin playing. I'm a cellist, so...
Right, I'll take that.
Can we talk about you? Did you play before?
No.
Or you had to learn for this role?
I had to learn. I put in a lot of time. A woman told me the other day, she was like, "Did you have to learn to play violin for this show?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "I could tell." Okay, that's the most disrespectful
like
thing
the
I've done.
exit is right there.
Yeah, who invited you to this play?
Yeah.
But no, it's a really hard. I play guitar and I played for like 15 years. So the left hand, which is where you press the strings, was there. But the bow, holding the bow, is a whole different ball game. Still working on it.
You were convincing for me.
I like that.
Okay?
Thank you.
So, good job. Who has our third question?
Hi. With this year marking the 400th anniversary since the arrival of the first Africans in what we know as the U.S., and there being significant scholarly research on that time period and discussion within the public discourse, how do you feel like that has impacted your interpretation of the play? How has it impacted the way the audience is looking at the play? And how important do you think it is that you're doing this play this year?
I think it's deeply important. The way it's kind of impacted my reading of the play, it's just racism, slavery, the impulse around lessening a human being, enslaving someone, telling them that they are not as valuable. What did I just say? Valuable? Yeah. Valuable? Valuable. That impulse just morphs in this country, actually. It becomes different things. And so for me, to look at that 400-year history, I'm also like, a lot has changed, but so much hasn't. The center of the thing has not changed. And to me, that gives me a fire to want to do this.
I also think, go ahead. You go.
You go first, and then Sullivan.
Okay. I was gonna say, for me and my journey, I realized I had to seek a lot of my information out from just my education about my history, my African history, the African American history is completely not taught to us in school. And so a lot of that comes from college and seeking out and reading. And what I realized was that even though I'm a Black body existing in this world, I carried that knowledge with me every day in a way that I feel like other individuals don't. And a lot of this play is about people like to pretend that slavery happened to one group of people. And what I'm so interested in the telling of this is how that if we've inherited the traumas as Black people, then what have the oppressors and their children inherited also, and how is that being seen now? And I think that's what this play is bringing. What have we all inherited from that trauma? What do we all still bring out into this world and how we interact with each other? And me and my personal journey, I'm not interested in teaching people anymore. At this point, and how I choose to move about in my world is that I have to release that trauma. I've done my research. I've read it, I lived it, I know it. And so if you're just now learning from an article of your history, that's problematic to me. There's a lot more that you can still do. And I think the agency has to be on everybody to read, to learn, to speak, to conversate, to talk. And I think there's just, I have just fully released, I guess, I give no fucks. I'll just say that. I give no fucks about carrying that weight any longer in a way that I have had to carry for so long. And I'm exhausted by it. At this point, I just want to live freely and decolonize my mind, drink my water, and grow my edges.
Come on. Thank you for your question. Great answer. One more.
I was wondering if any of you guys had any realizations about your own racial identities and histories as you learned what the characters were learning about their own, and did it draw parallels? Was it scary sometimes to be like, oh, shit, like, is that me? Or is that not me? Or did you have any discoveries like the characters did?
I have a yeah. I learned that ethnicity and race get conflated all the time, and that just because I was born and raised in Puerto Rico doesn't change the color of my skin and how I sound and how I walk in and out of places, and just the inherent privilege that I walk with. So I've learned to shut up a lot more and listen more.
That's really important, and I think one of the big themes of the play, actually, when Jeremy was here, he was like, I hope it encourages people to listen in a new way that maybe they wouldn't have before. Instead of saying, like, I don't understand you, or explain it to me again, just listening to people instead of jumping in automatically.
I think this play is for everyone. I know it was written for Black and brown bodies, but it is for everyone to listen to each other, and I think that's why it's important that everyone come. Yeah. No matter the color of their skin, it's important that everyone come and learn to listen.
And something that Robert said in the beginning of the rehearsal process was that slavery happened to white people too, in the sense that that white people have to examine and learn that history and responsibility of how it happened to them and how they are a part of that history as well. So and understand their part in it, and that exists in present day society. So that collective trauma. That yearning for understanding and research and knowing history, that's just as much as a white American's responsibility as a Black American's.
Yeah. And I would also, like, a realization I've come to around my identity is that I sort of walking through specifically this one moment that my character has where he talks about how he's valued, you know? And it's made me realize that I want to make sure that people who look like me know that they are valued. Like that feels like a mission for me in a way that, like, previous to this play, I couldn't articulate. But yeah, I want to make sure that there aren't little Black boys, specifically little queer Black boys, walking around feeling like they don't matter, you know? So that is something that I feel like is now kind of a mandate for me that came out of this play.
And I think that's Jeremy is such a, I think, important playwright at this time in history. He wrote the piece for Vice called Decolonizing Desire, which really kind of goes into what you're talking about. And I feel like if anybody feels like the title of this play is too provoking or they don't quite understand, because a lot of people want to place their own assumptions on what this play is without knowing actually what it is, I would encourage them to read that article, have some understanding, and then go see it, and then have a conversation. Because like you guys said, you guys don't solve any answers, or you don't solve the problem. You're just providing a forum for conversation and a springboard for conversation. And I do think it's an incredibly important show that I have now seen twice. And I will go again if you guys want to go with me. I want to thank each of you for being a part of this, for being vulnerable every night, from watching it. I know it's not easy, so I appreciate performers who just leave it out there every day. It's an incredible piece of art to watch. And if you guys want to see it, Slave Play will be at the Golden Theater through January 19th. Give it up for the cast.